Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
One introduction. Maybe you have heard the word baptism. Many people know this word. You might hear about it in movies, on the news, or from friends. But what is baptism exactly? What does this word truly mean? And why is this practice important for some people? Why do they choose to do it? It is a practice that has been done for a very long time, for hundreds and hundreds of years. In this chapter, we will begin our study of baptism. This is the first step in understanding this topic. We want to understand what baptism is in a simple way. We will look at the basic ideas that are connected to it. We will try to explain this special action clearly. Baptism is often a religious practice. It is very important in the Christian religion. People who follow Christianity often think about baptism and its meaning for their lives. However, people who follow Christianity do not all think the same about baptism. There are different ideas and traditions among different groups of Christians. Some churches do baptism in one way, maybe by using a little water. Other churches do it in a different way, perhaps by putting the person completely under the water. They also have different ideas about what baptism means and who should be baptized. This is normal when something is very old and has been practiced by many people in many places around the world. In this study, we will look at these different ideas and traditions. We will learn about them step by step. We will see why people have different views and what those views are. Our goal is not to say that one idea is better than another idea. We will not take sides or try to say who is right or wrong. We will just learn about the different ways people understand and practice baptism. We want to understand this practice better from different points of view. This first chapter is an introduction. It tells you what the next 7 chapters will be about. In total, there will be 8 chapters in this study. We will explore many interesting questions about baptism. We will look at the history of baptism in old stories from the past. We will learn about the reasons why people choose to be baptized today. We will look at the different ways baptism is done around the world. We will also think about who can be baptized, because there are different ideas about this too, especially about babies or older people. We will discuss how baptism is connected to a person's beliefs and faith. And finally, we will look at the idea that baptism can mean a new start in a person's life. All these topics help us understand baptism more deeply. We will try to make everything easy to understand by using simple English words and clear sentences. Our main goal is to learn and to understand the different views that exist. This is a practice that has been important to millions of people for a very long time. Understanding it helps us understand them and their faith. So, welcome to this study. We hope you find it helpful and interesting. This introduction chapter sets the stage for our learning journey. It tells you what is coming in the chapters that follow. We will explore the meaning, the history, the reasons, the ways, and the ideas behind baptism together. Let's start this learning journey now. 2. What baptism means. The word baptism comes from an old language, Greek. In Greek, the word means to dip or to put under water. This helps us understand what baptism usually looks like. It is a special action that uses water. Water is very important in baptism. It is not just any water. It is used to show something deep and meaningful. For many people, using water in baptism is like a picture of washing clean. Just like water can wash dirt away and make things clean, baptism can show a washing away of past mistakes or old ways of living. It shows a new, clean start with God. For others, baptism is a sign of joining a group. It can mean joining God's family, the family of all believers. It can also mean becoming a member of a specific church community. It is a public step that shows you are now part of this special family or group. It is like saying, "I belong here now." In Christianity, baptism is a very old and important practice. It is seen as a way to show openly what a person believes in their heart. It is a sign of faith. Think about baptism with water as an outside sign. It shows what is happening inside a person. When someone becomes a Christian, many believe that God's Spirit comes to live inside them. This inner change is sometimes called being baptized by the Spirit. The water baptism is the outward action that shows this inner change to the world. It shows a person's connection with Jesus Christ. The Bible talks about Jesus dying, being buried, and rising again. When a person goes under the water in baptism, it can be a picture of dying to their old way of life, their old self. When they come out of the water, it can be a picture of rising to a new life. This new life is a life connected to God. It is a new beginning. So water baptism is a strong picture of this big change. It is a way for a person to say to their community and to the world, "I am a follower of Jesus now. My old life is finished. I am starting a new life with God." It is important to understand that the water itself is not magic, but the action of baptism is a powerful symbol. A symbol helps us understand a bigger truth. Water baptism is a symbol of a spiritual reality. It shows that a person has turned away from their past life and turned towards God. They have a new, loving relationship with God. This action is also seen as an act of obedience. Jesus asked his followers to baptize people who became his disciples. So for many, being baptized is an important act of following what they believe God wants them to do. It is a step of faith and obedience. Different Christian groups have slightly different ideas about baptism. But the main ideas are often centered around the meaning of the water, the idea of washing or cleansing, the picture of a new start, and the sign of joining God's family or a church. It is a way for a person to show their faith publicly and take an important step in their spiritual journey. 3. Old stories about baptism. Baptism is a practice with a long history. We can read about it in old stories. These stories tell us how it started for some people who followed a certain path. Long ago, there was a man named John. People called him John the Baptist. He lived near the Jordan River. He used water for a special purpose. When people came to him, they wanted to show they were changing. They wanted to turn away from bad things and turn towards God. John would take these people and put them in the water of the river. This action with water was called baptism. Many people went to John for this baptism. One very important story is about Jesus. Jesus also came to John the Baptist at the Jordan River. Jesus asked John to baptize him. John did this. He put Jesus under the water. When Jesus came out of the water, the stories say something special happened. This event was very important. It showed Jesus taking part in this water practice that John was doing. After Jesus was baptized, he started teaching and helping people. Later, Jesus told his followers to go and teach people everywhere. He also told them to baptize the people who believed his message. So the followers of Jesus started to use water baptism too, just like John had done, and just like Jesus had done. We can read about this in the old books that tell the story of Jesus and his first followers. For example, after a man named Peter shared the message about Jesus, many people believed. The stories say that about 3,000 people believed on that one day. These new believers were then baptized with water. This shows that baptism was an important step for people who decided to follow Jesus. In another story from those times, a woman named Lydia heard the message about Jesus. She listened carefully and she believed. After she believed, she and the people who lived in her house were baptized. This shows that baptism was something new believers did openly. It was a step they took after deciding to follow Jesus. These stories from the past are very important for understanding baptism today. They show us the beginning of the practice of water baptism within the Christian faith. They show John the Baptist doing it first, then Jesus himself being baptized, and then Jesus's first followers continuing the practice for new believers. It was a way for people to show their faith and follow the teachings they had accepted. The old stories tell us about people going into water, sometimes a river or other water. They show leaders performing this action. It was often a public step, done in front of others. It was a way to mark a change in a person's life and beliefs. These events from long ago are the roots of the baptism practice that many people follow today. The stories give us a picture of how this practice started many, many years ago and why it is connected to following Jesus. They are part of the history of faith for millions of people around the world. 4. Reasons for baptism. People choose baptism for different reasons. For many, it is a way to show their belief in Jesus. It is like a public statement. They are saying to everyone, "I believe in Jesus and want to follow him." It is a way to make their faith known openly. Another important reason is to follow what they are taught. In the past, followers of Jesus were given instructions. They were told to make new followers and then baptize them. So doing this is seen as an act of obedience. It is doing what they believe God wants them to do, following his command. For some people, baptism is a step to become part of a church. It can be a way to join the family of people who believe the same things. It shows they are now part of that community. This joining is often seen as an important step in their life of faith, connecting them to other believers. Baptism is often felt to be a very important step in a person's journey of faith. It marks a special moment. It is like an outside sign of something big that has happened inside the person. It shows a change in their life and heart. It is a sign of their commitment to God and their new path. It can mean starting new. It is sometimes described as leaving an old way of living behind and beginning a new life connected to God. It is a way to show that the person has turned towards God and away from past mistakes. It symbolizes a fresh start. Being baptized openly tells the world, "I am a Christian now." It is linked to believing in God and trusting in what they believe He has done for them. Many people believe you first choose to follow God and accept His message. Then you are baptized to show that choice to others. It is a public declaration of their faith and a sign of their new identity. This act of baptism is seen as following God's direction. It is doing what they understand He asked His followers to do. It is not just a simple action with water. It has deep meaning for the person who is baptized, marking a significant event. It is like a promise or a sign of a promise between the person and God. It helps people feel closer to God. It also helps them feel connected to other people who share their faith, building community. It is a formal welcome into the Christian group or church. Some Christian traditions believe it is very important for a person's relationship with God and for their path to heaven. Others see it more as a symbol of a choice they have already made inside their heart and a sign of belonging. But for almost everyone who chooses baptism, it is a moment full of meaning and importance. It shows they are serious about living a life that follows Jesus. It is a way to celebrate deciding to follow their faith openly. It marks the start of a new path in life. It is an important step for showing their faith openly. It is also a way to show thanks for what they believe God has done for them. It helps them feel closer to God and to others who are also on this path. It is a special time they will remember for their whole life. It is a sign of hope for the future and a connection to the past. It connects the person to the long history of this practice that goes back a very long time, linking them to believers across the ages. These are some of the main reasons why people choose to be baptized. It is a step of faith, a public statement, a sign of belonging, an act of obedience, and a new beginning for the person. It is a way to live out their belief in a visible way. 5. How baptism is done. Baptism is done in different ways. The way water is used can change. There are 3 main ways this can happen. One way is called sprinkling. This is when a little water is put on a person's head. The leader uses their hand or something small to put the water on the head. This way uses the least amount of water. Another way is called pouring. This is when more water is used than sprinkling. The leader pours water from a cup or hand onto the person's head. It is like a small amount of water falling onto the person. A third way is called immersion. This means putting the whole person into the water. The person goes completely under the water for a moment. This needs a place with enough water, like a special pool called a baptistry inside a church, or a river, lake, or the sea outside. Immersion can be done by the person going under fully or sometimes just partly. Sometimes this is done more than one time, perhaps 3 times. For many, going under the water shows an old life ending, and coming out shows a new life beginning. During the baptism, special words are usually said. Most Christian groups say words like, "I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." These words are very important. They show that the baptism is done in the name of God, who is seen as 3 persons in one. This follows what is written in the Bible in a place where Jesus tells his followers what to do. However, some groups say different words, like only in the name of Jesus. The words used depend on the beliefs of the church or group doing the baptism. A person who leads the church usually does the baptism. This leader might be called a pastor, priest, or minister. They are the one who uses the water and says the special words. They guide the person through the steps of the baptism. Before the baptism, the person might talk with the leader. They might share why they want to be baptized. The place where baptism happens can be different, as mentioned. The choice of place often depends on how the baptism is done. Sprinkling or pouring can happen in many places, even just using a small bowl of water. Immersion needs a place with a lot of water to cover the person. The way baptism is done is important for many people. It is a public action and a special event. It shows their faith to others in a clear way. Family and friends often come to watch and support the person. The water is the main sign in the action, no matter how it is used. The words spoken connect the action to beliefs about God. The leader makes sure everything is done in the way their church believes is right. Different churches choose one or more of these ways based on their understanding of the Bible and tradition. For example, some churches only practice immersion because they feel it best shows the meaning of baptism. Others use sprinkling or pouring, especially for babies or people who cannot be immersed. Each method uses water to show something important about faith. It is a meaningful event for the person and the church community. 6. Who can be baptized? Different churches have different ideas about who can be baptized. It is not the same for everyone. Some churches baptize babies and very young children. They believe this is a way to welcome the child into God's family. For these churches, baptism is like a special door that helps the child join the church family. This practice is sometimes called christening, especially when it is for babies. Churches like the Catholic Church, Eastern Orthodox churches, and Lutheran churches often baptize infants. They see it as an important step early in life, a way for the child to become part of the Christian community. Baptism is seen as the door to church membership for them. Other churches have a different idea about who should be baptized. They believe that a person must be old enough to understand and choose for themselves. These churches baptize people who have made a personal choice to believe. This is often called believer's baptism. Churches like Baptist churches follow this practice. They think that belief must come first before baptism. They look at stories from the Bible to understand the order of things. In these stories, people first heard the message about faith. Then they chose to believe it in their hearts. After they believed, they were baptized. For example, the Bible talks about making followers first and then baptizing them. It also tells about people who accepted the teaching and then were baptized. Another story tells of a woman who heard the message. God opened her heart to understand, and then she and her family were baptized. So, for churches that practice believers' baptism, the act of baptism is a step that follows belief. It is an outward action that shows the inner change and choice a person has made. It is like saying to the world, "I believe and I am showing it now." They believe a person needs to understand what they are doing and choose to turn from an old way of life to a new life of faith. So, we see two main ideas about who can be baptized. One is baptizing babies as a welcome and a start in the church family. The other is baptizing believers who are old enough to choose and show their faith. Both groups use water and see baptism as important, but they have different reasons for who they baptize and when. Understanding these different ideas helps us see the different paths people follow in their faith journey and how they understand this special practice. 7. Beliefs and baptism. Belief and baptism are closely linked for many people. They feel that a person must first have belief in their heart. This belief is usually in Jesus and his teachings. When someone believes, baptism can be a way to show this belief to the world. It is like a public statement or a testimony. It is an outward sign of something important that has happened inside the person. Many see baptism as a very special time. They feel it is a moment when God is present and active. It is not thought of as magic, but it holds deep meaning for them. It is a clear way for a person to show their faith. It is often seen as a step of following what they are taught to do. The common idea is that belief comes before baptism. A person first hears and understands the message of faith. They make a decision to believe. This decision is often called accepting Christ. Then baptism follows. It is often understood as an act of obedience to God. It is like saying, I believe and I want to follow this path. This order is important for many groups. First, you hear and accept the message of faith. Then you are baptized. This act is often seen as connected to a person's salvation journey. There is also talk about a baptism with the Spirit. This is seen as an inner change that happens when a person becomes a follower of Christ. It is God's Spirit coming to live inside them. This makes them a new person, a new creation. Water baptism is often seen as the outward sign of this inner spiritual change. It is a way to show what has happened inside. It is like acting out the inner change that God has done. The use of water in baptism is full of meaning. For those who are fully put under the water, it can show dying to an old way of life. It symbolizes the end of living apart from God. Coming out of the water is a sign of rising to a new life. It shows a new start with God. This action with water is a picture of the spiritual change that happens inside a person when they believe. It shows they are now alive in a new way with Christ. For many churches that baptize people who are old enough to choose, it is very important that the person truly understands and believes before they are baptized. Baptism is their way of telling everyone, I am a follower of Christ now. It is a step they take after they have accepted the message of faith in their heart. It is a physical action that shows the change inside. It connects them openly to their faith and often to other believers in a church community. This strong link between a person's inner belief and the outward act of baptism is central for many. It is a meaningful part of their journey of faith and a public declaration. 8. A new start with baptism. Baptism is often seen as a new beginning. It is like starting a new life. Think about going under the water. This can show the end of an old way of life. It is like the old self, the person before, is gone. Then, coming up out of the water shows a new life. This new life is a spiritual one. It is a life connected with God. It is like rising with Jesus to live in a different way. The water action, going down and coming up, helps people understand this big change. When a person is baptized, it is a way to tell others something important. It is a public sign of their faith. It shows that they believe in Jesus and want to follow him now. They are saying to the world, I am a new person. There is also talk about an inner change. Some call this the baptism of the Spirit. This is a change that happens inside a person. God does this change. It makes a person spiritually alive. Before, they might have felt far from God, like being spiritually dead. But the Spirit makes them new inside. It is a miracle. Water baptism is the outside sign of this inner change. It is a way to show what has happened inside. It shows that a person has turned from their old life. They have turned to God. They have a new spiritual relationship. This new start is not just a small thing, it means everything changes. A person sees the world differently. They live differently. They are part of God's family. Water baptism helps show this to everyone. So, baptism with water is a picture. It shows the death of the old self and the start of a new life with God. It is an outward action that shows an inward change. It is a step taken after a person believes. It tells the world about this new path.